a new episode of the Pocket of Wisdom podcast on King Canvas. My name is Deborah and I'll be your host today. And on this podcast, I like to invite God-loving people from different walks of life to share their wisdom because I believe that God cares about what you care about and we get to learn what God is doing in the lives of those around us. And I am so humbled today that I have with me Miss Pinky from IACT College and One Academy. And before I go on, Miss Pinky, would you do us the honors of telling us more about yourself?
Certainly. Hi there, everybody. Deborah, thank you so very much for taking that time to consider that I'm worthy to be appearing in your podcast.
Of course, Miss Pinky, that's not even a question.
Well, a little bit of background so that, I guess it's just good to introduce ourselves to the audiences. You can call me Pinky. My name is Pinky Khoo. I've been a lecturer at colleges in and around the Klang Valley for nearly 20 years. That's a good 2 decades worth.
2 decades.
And, in lecturing, it was truly a great pleasure and a wonderful surprise to come across such faith-led students such as Deborah herself.
Miss Pinky.
And various Christian students out there that always show that they have this ability to stand out slightly differently from the others. So it brought me back to connect with her, and that's why I'm here today, joining you.
And Miss Pinky, before you became a lecturer, I understand that you were a broadcast and announcer for close to 9?
I would say a whole decade, definitely.
A whole decade,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really long time.
Yeah.
So, what led you to become a broadcast/announcer? Did you always grow up wanting to be one?
I would say it definitely never happens that way.
Right.
There are many, things that happen in the career development of people where there are times if you sometimes really allow God to begin by planting some seed of His guidance, into you. Then you see yourself sometimes taking a certain direction in the pathway. All right. So for myself, it was really upon finishing college, and I was in one of the leading colleges in Petaling Jaya. And upon finishing my studies there, and we're talking about the bachelor's level,
right?
I was really doing mass comm, So in that way, I was pursuing a direction that I wanted. But it wasn't because I wanted to get into broadcasting. It was really because I wanted to be trained to be a journalist more than anything else.
Wow.
And it just, it started from young when you are picked up by your teachers to know that you've got certain skills. And for me, it was very definite that my skills was in communication. It's basically on writing, and being good and being focused on it. And I kind of got that sense that this is going to be my pathway in life anyway. So there I went into KDU College. Some of you may have heard of it. It's in Damansara. And upon finishing studies, I left and I was I went into music industry.
Wow.
And these were recording companies. They were the big recording companies were very much in their boom era. So we are talking about some leading ones. I'm not sure if Deborah, you know them. Warner Music, EMI Music, BMG. These were the recording companies that were out there, and they were seeking people who were trained with creative arts, humanities, or communications background.
Right.
So I knew even when I stepped into the industry that it wasn't going to be straight off going into say newspaper work, because I wanted to see what was available first.
Right.
So that part of me wanted to experience how people in the industry were like, to get a sense of what kind of people I would expect, in creative and in mass comm related sectors. And so I ended up working for 2 different recording outfits or companies, and it was in that period that I met with mentors, I would say.
Wow.
And again, it is just really something you cannot predict when a mentor steps into your pathway, who would change your perspective, who would give you that kind of guidance and make you see things very deeply and make you question yourself as well.
Right.
And those questions for myself, it was like, if I were to go, and do media work, how can I contribute? How could I be someone of value to the industry and maintain my principles?
Right.
Because I was also very critically aware at that time, that people working in creative sectors, because they come from all kinds of backgrounds,
Yes.
you would meet people who were centered on various values,
That's right.
materialist values, and people who were like party animals,
Yes.
and people who would just live their life on a day-by-day basis, and there was this a lot of attachments of the stereotype of people working in creative sectors, like say entertainment, the music business. It was a lot more play than it was work.
Right. That's
And
true.
this could take them into territories, into certain dark places, and or they get tempted.
Yes.
Everything in every aspect, this temptation is all over the industry. So meeting mentors while I was at it actually helped me to settle down, to ask these questions of myself. How can I use my time, if I'm going to step into broadcasting and do this kind of work? How can I come across to become somebody who is value-centered, and say I open my mouth and speak, or I am doing some, say, MC work, which I did a lot of as well. And so with the guidance of these good people that God has sent into my life, I would say that it just naturally led me into applying for a job in RTM.
Right.
And the time was 1990s. Okay.
Wow,
Well,
I wasn't even born.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
ICT, I think, may have just kind of like got started.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
it was smaller then, as a college. So we who were in the industry, we were given chances to be of service to the government, and that's because at that time in the 1990s, our Prime Minister, and who is Dr. Mahathir,
Yes.
Tun Mahathir, he was opening up a speak English in public spaces, and it was like a English speaking programs.
Right.
And he wanted it to be rolled out or implemented in such a way whereby he could see it at every level of civil service, whether you were stepping up to receive a service at the counters in the government, or whether it was like listening to people like me on the radio doing, work, or of course the broadcasters were on television as well. And so I was encouraged by the mentor that I was, following to try my luck.
Right.
And he called it that, just go try your luck, you lose nothing, just go for your audition. And so that's what I did. I ended up for 10 and a half years, just close to about 11 years, at the station called Radio Music. And that is one of the radio stations that is managed by RTM Networks, which is, as you know, is government owned. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Networks.
amazing, Miss Pinky. I love you brought up the fact that you ask yourself very important questions before you entered the particular field. How can you contribute? And you wanted to hold on to your own value system
I very
as
much
you
wanted.
entered it as well. Not to just look at the glam that we notice on social
The surface,
the
isn't it?
surface,
Yeah.
that's right, without actually digging deeper to know the reality of entering a particular industry.
I
It can
think
be
so.
any industry for that matter.
Yes, for that matter.
So Miss Pinky, for the time that you have spent as a radio announcer, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and what were your biggest takeaways during that period of time?
This is to me the biggest question you're asking me.
Yes.
Because to try and tell you all kinds of challenges that we face as a national level broadcaster, it's just kind of impossible for me to go and delve deeply into it. But I'll just scope it down in the way that I understood it at that time. All right.
Okay.
Having a national level exposure and audience where you are just speaking to your audiences, whom you can't see, by the way, Deborah, because they are our radio listeners.
That's
you know,
true.
and it wasn't like in a sense where the networks hasn't transited yet to the digital formats. You know what I'm
That
saying?
makes a lot of sense.
No
Because
websites.
I tried to find your samples back then.
ah.
I failed. But yes, continue with speaking.
Oh, there you go. Traditional media offers this level of challenges whereby if you were to be a broadcaster, you're pretty much guided by and controlled by the ethical principles and guideline of how the Malaysian media would need to work.
Right.
Okay, and so working in a radio station, you may have your own specific followership.
Right.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, you are still needing to be a voice piece for the government. Okay, because working in RTM, Radio Television Malaysia, which is based in Angkasa Puri in Bangsar, you would just always need to be grounded to know that in your everyday aspect of the life, the work that you do, yes, there's a lot of freedom to be able to speak in your own style, you know, and to let your personality shine.
Yes.
But no matter how, you're still grounded with the understanding that the government uses these platforms to mass disseminate messages to the publics.
That's
right?
very true.
And so for me, it was a tussle between knowing how to differentiate using my voice to carry propaganda and using my voice to bear out my personality.
Wow. That's
So-
a balance there.
Propaganda, personality. And that's not quite easy to do because, you know, you're always needing to kind of like step very carefully.
Yes.
Yeah. Overstep the line, such as, for example, if you were to carry out some jokes, you know, some parody or a certain snide or cynical statement, and it seems to be hinting that you are criticizing some particular member
Right.
of, you know, a political, what do you call, a party, or say some authority. By stepping over the line, you would know that the consequences have to be borne by you and you alone.
Right.
And it is these things that, while they were challenging, they taught me a lot as well. And it really matured me in those 10 years I was working in RTM to strike that balance. To
Right.
be a voice piece of the government. Some of these lessons of which I do share when I'm teaching my mass media students in ICT, but at the same time to try and maintain your own style and personality, and to let that come across as well, that you are still an individual, and you can still connect with certain listeners that like your presentation mode or your style, you know, that sort of way. So I would have to say that the challenges were there, simplified compared to maybe your generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess radio back then
Yeah.
and today is
Yeah.
absolutely very different. Would you say?
I think in Malaysia, the pace of change and adaptation to digital networks and to new technologies in broadcast, this paces of change are slow, and they don't necessarily reach the rural or the smaller segments that are far away from the cities. All right, like you and I, you know, and a lot of people are listening to this podcast right now. We may be just sometimes taking it for granted that it's so easy to connect with somebody else, and on a daily basis you can update, you can talk about, you know, what you're doing in your life. But people with less access or are indeed very far away from access to technologies such as those in smaller cities and towns all over our country, right? Including Sabah and Sarawak, they take things a little bit slower.
Right.
And their pacing of understanding, say, government propaganda or any kind of messages that's disseminated, no matter whether it's on social media, whether it's on traditional, you know, media such as television, right, and radio, their pace of understanding the rapid developments in KL is actually on a slower pacing, slower rate, and they need reminders. And this is where media people, and I mean, if there are people who are studying media who are listening to this podcast right now, this really is actually what do you call that, a bit of a advice from me, yeah, that Malaysian publics, when they are listening to messages that's given to them on mass media and on social media, if it is a good message, they just need reminder. They need to get that message again and again. It just may not do to actually deliver that message one time, and a lot of people like it or share that message, or tuned in. Malaysian society does tend to need reminders that that message is beneficial for them, or it's important for them to understand those things. All right, it could be like what's happening in the midst that we are in right now, a public health crisis.
Yeah.
And those issues, of the spreading of, say, a virus, or misinformation, which is happening a lot around us. They need reminders, constant reminder that there are some information that they've got to throw away, or at least think for themselves whether or not they should accept that kind of information that some stranger had shared with them. And they can't even trace, where it comes from, but they choose to believe those things.
Right.
Yeah, and these are the biggest problems, I think. That's the difference between maybe people of my generation, people of your generation.
That is very true. Miss Pinky, I was also wondering, did you ever face a time where you were presented with a piece of information that you did not feel comfortable sharing? I was just wondering.
We always vet, Deborah. We are always needing to constantly self-censor. That's the best word for it. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Vet, filter, or self-censor certain information that we feel should really be unsuitable for mass audiences. This is the one thing of training from RTM that I had gotten, and it became stronger and stronger over the years that I worked there, doing radio broadcasts, where we can't just allow any kind of rubbish, verbal rubbish to be regurgitated, or to just say it just because it was the latest update of a gossip that we have found on social media, or indeed it's the latest piece of news, and that if it is not verified, or if we sense and we suspect that there is some issues to do with the authenticity of that message, I think in my generation, being a little bit more critically trained on this, we would do a lot of self-filtering. So this pre-preparation actually helped us to ensure unnecessarily controversial or too burdensome kind of information that may create chaotic response, that we try to eliminate these things, or we try to verify that information first. And so I would say we, in broadcasting, I think a lot of broadcasters were a bit more careful, and we applied this self-censorship kind of principle in doing our work. In terms of uncomfortable things, I think for this, I do not really want to sound preachy on this, because I know, different people out there would have their different style of judging this. I would say if you sense that you are saying something that's just really going to come across cheesy, and phony, and it just doesn't sound believable, and that people are going to react, if you can use your own personal judgment and try to avoid making controversial statements, then it could help you to protect your career, your reputation, for maybe a longer period of time. Compared to what I noticed is that some people who are in broadcast today, or who are bloggers, or who are influencers, they, without thinking through, they just choose to release and let go something from their heart or from their opinion, or very impulsive, ways by which they are saying things, and then they realize after they have released it, or they have spoken out, that it was just it just should not have been. And by that time they would have to either recall the statement, make an apology, or explain themselves, and it just gets them through a whole level of problem. It's just additional trouble for yourself. So you might as well self-censor that little bit more.
Wow, I'm so thankful that you shared that, because it's very true what you say, that nowadays everyone feels that they have to say something about something, even when they don't know enough about that particular situation. And I love that you are the way you conducted your whole career. You were very aware of the influence that you have and the weight of the consequence of what would happen if you don't properly censor yourself, or you don't present a certain information in a way that it should be presented. Especially now social media, we could say anything anytime, and when we are bloggers and influencers, that's when they react
Yes. Yes.
for the purpose of virality.
Yes, virality, yeah.
Virality.
That's the word for it.
And
for that particular reason for why they feel they need to jump in and have their 2 cents worth. Yeah.
Just to jump on that wave of particular subject of that period of time.
I guess so. Yeah, it's been going on, and I think I'll just add one more benefit of self-censorship as well, and I hope you all can see this in the right way as well, especially your generation. It's this. By being very, very cautious in the certain things that you are to release or to actually disseminate to an audience that's being influenced by you, you got a chance to really protect the image of your industry.
Wow. Yeah.
Of the people who are all kind of like caught in that same boat, you could say, you know, and everybody's doing their thing, you know, whether you are a vlogger, whether you're a blogger, whether you are a YouTuber, you know, or releasing content in whichever way, or managing your content, or whether you are indeed, on radio, TV, or, digital spaces. By having that little bit more concern about where you should put a line and not step across that, you're actually protecting the rest of those who are inside that industry.
Wow. That is really so true. Thank you for sharing that, Miss Pinky.
You're most welcome.
So,
that's what I believe.
When was the point where you decided to make a change
and
a shift to become a lecturer? Tell us more about that.
Would you really call that a shift? Because, I was a broadcaster, and I am today, and have been for close to 2 decades, a lecturer, right? To me, teaching and communications, Deborah, it's the same thing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, when you teach, you communicate. Yeah,
that is very
when
true.
You broadcast, or if you're a journalist, you communicate as well.
I agree. Can I just add something here, that when I was in Miss Pinky's class, it would sometimes feel like it was a live radio show because of the way she communicated what she was teaching, and I was really so blessed because being an announcer or a broadcaster was a path that I was considering also. So I really looked up to you, Miss Pinky. I was just gonna put that out there. Okay, please continue.
That revelation, now I can see why your eyes were like, so strictly following me when I was going through all my lesson notes, and taking you through or some of the boring subjects, maybe. But there you were, definitely.
Yes,
I was blessed
really,
with 2 ears that were really listening to me.
I really did learn a lot from you, and I really loved the way you presented yourself and how you were just really invested in us. That is something that I won't forget. So
Thank you. I still am. I really still am invested in helping the young generation to understand that communication is lifelong. And it's not just because the cameras are on you, or the people's ears are listening to you. It's the way that you present yourself with sincerity and to the best that you can, without hiding your true self, from people. And that's maybe a little hard to do, in today's in today's circumstances where media seems to be like an added screen. To me, it's just become like a screen to disconnect us from people.
That is very true.
So when I stepped into doing teaching, it was again a God-blessed and God-led kind of pathway. And it had to do with me settling down, all right? And wanting to have time where I can build my family. So after about 10 plus years, I would say near to about the 11th year, I decided that though I received some what is that word? Some offers, some
right.
offers from the private radio stations. They were asking me, am I willing to migrate? You've hung in there in RTM for quite a number of years. Well trained, you should just go for private radio. Now, if I took that pathway, Deborah, you know what? Today you're probably listening to me on the radio. It just,
I would be very happy also. I mean, I wouldn't mind that.
But that's all I was going to be.
Right.
I thought that as I grew older, I should really give back, and I needed to feel that I could touch another generation and to just release everything back again in terms of what I've learned and, the knowledge that was so hard for me to actually gather. And I wanted to touch and to experience what it was like to be a guide of the younger generation.
Wow.
And so along the way, after I got married, a few years after that, my baby came along. He's a rather giant guy today, and
Right.
he is nearly 20 years old already, and so he's grown up too. But at that time, when I was wanting to settle down and start the family and to ensure that I could spend quality time, I decided that doing broadcasting wasn't very suitable because there were a lot of shifts, that required me to be in the studio at, shall we call it, ungodly times?
Yes, I understand.
Past
Totally
midnight,
understand.
and you'll be working all the way in the night, and in such a way it would disturb your lifestyle, disturb your balance, So I decided that it was just wonderful experience, but I said no to some of those private radio stations so that I could firstly find a career that allows me to feel that I'm settling down to the next phase of life. And that's, where you have a child and you are a bit more committed, with your family. And then with that, I can still use the experiences or the skills that I've gained to actually touch the next generation. So that was the reason why I jumped ship and moved from broadcasting into teaching. That's lasted me quite a number of years. I love seeing different generations of students. I have seen millennials. I have taught Gen Y, and up until today, I am teaching Gen Z, I think.
Yes, you are. You are teaching Gen Z.
Amazing, yeah.
And that's the interesting part. You are teaching two different generations of people, or rather you have had that experience. So after teaching for so long, what have you observed about your students, as you have said, Gen Y, Gen Z, and what are your hopes for them, for us, Gen Y?
You really label yourself Gen Y? I guess so.
I'm actually at the age. So right after me would be Gen Z already.
There you go. Yeah. Okay then. So every year counts, in kind of like putting into a certain segment, isn't it, out there? And the mentality of younger people today does actually kind of shift around, depending on their one factor being their engagement with the media, just one of the factors. In fact, it's kind of from the observation that I've seen, both in the classroom and in a general sense, looking at the communication habits, of the various generations that I've taught. I think this is where I have seen quite a lot of differences between the people of today and, say, my generation. I want to begin by saying something very positive, which is that I find the millennials, and particularly your generation, Gen Y, and then moving on as well now into Gen Z, I see that many of the youth today are very resourceful.
Wow.
Very resourceful in building relationships with people that matter, and being very clear in some of the goals that they want. They set certain goals, and some of them are able to really go out there and achieve those goals.
Wow.
I really admire the young generation for this think that word that I have in mind is temerity, you know, and this steadiness by which some of them really pursue things up until, you know, they have said, I have succeeded in doing something. You know, it may just be a small project. It may just be that they wanted to learn something, and then they gain that, you know, and to them it's this thrill. And then because there are social networks today, they express it a lot. And so that's where people like me, you know, we encounter it, right? And we will see, you know, how you will post what you have achieved, you know, whether you finished this marathon, you know, or you have done some video content, you know, that you've actually learned something on your own. And it's like, it's just really wonderful to see this resourcefulness. And it's not from book knowledge so much, but a mix of maybe basic education and then looking around at the world around them. And that's one thing that I've noticed. It seems to be really wonderfully encouraging.
Wow, that's great.
The opposite side of the spectrum would be the cases where I've also noticed this over-dependence on using the platforms that you have today, you know, various social network platforms. And you have that to do a lot of self-broadcasting. Podcasts.
Yes, like this one.
It really, we can't deny it.
Yes,
Can't deny that it is very much trying to get a certain followership, you know, of people who might want to tune into a certain content, and then to be able to speak out, you know, on some issues, right? So these things are good, but I think if you are too overwhelmed by all kinds of media platforms out there, some people again can't quite differentiate between those that are beneficial and those that are a little bit kind of off track, and it's very distracting, you know, to follow people that you're not really that 100% you know, that tuned into, but you're just following maybe because it's a trend, and other people are following this same influencer, and you need to be seen to be following that same person as well. You know, so I think this jumping into this bandwagon of trends, it's something that's happened even in my generation. But the alarming thing that I've noticed, Deborah, is that it's happening too fast.
It is.
It's happening in such a way that you are not so connected with those that you're following anymore. And you can't extract any value from being a fan, you know. You really don't know what their personality is like. And it just so happened that this person is trending, and this person's, you know, Instagram is absolutely, you know, the number one, and you're following for the sake of following what everybody else is following. So I feel that these could be the non-reflection component of media usage that could get some of the younger generation into a bit of trouble.
That's true. Gathering from what you're sharing, we have sort of confused knowing about someone and knowing someone. And social media does a really quote-unquote great job at making us feel like we know someone based on what we see, whereas 80% of the time not be the case when we actually get to know that person, because
it's a persona sometimes.
It's a persona. It's a persona to sometimes it's people's bread and butter.
That's true.
So they will have to.
The aspect of how they have to present themselves. In comparison, in that time when I was a broadcaster, I actually had specific followership for not just say the style of programming, but maybe the music that was played, and we would hear from them. They weren't just people who liked us and who commented on things that we said, but they would, you know what, in that time, right, traditional media, they would write letters to us.
That's
amazing.
Wow.
Postcards, letters, you know. The least they could do is they would call in. Those call-in programs, you know. And they would actually like say, you know, hey, you know, I heard that you played this song last week, you know. Hey, what was that song, you know? And then they call you again and again. And from this, it just feels like you're kind of connected to a real someone. That you've actually spoken to, and that you know, who seems to be a follower, and who's at least tuning into the things that you're doing. So I feel this connection somehow was a little bit more expressed and Of course, it was a more simple time. Yeah, and you could not interact so much. So, of course, yeah, the listeners would just write into us, or at least they would call into us. But today, there are so many ways of interaction on social platforms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people are getting really creative with it as well. Yeah, and Miss Pinky, I think you brought up an important point that the whichever generation, like for example, us, we are all looking for someone to inspire us, someone that we can learn from. I think that is part of why they love following certain celebrities, and because they want to be like them, right? And so I think that brings up the important point of intergenerational mentorship and partnership. I don't think that's the right
collaborative
word.
Work,
collaborative work. And I think you are playing a big part in that, because you are a lecturer and you have direct contact with students, and I'm sure many of them would look up to you and to want to learn from you as well.
I hope so.
And so from your opinion, right, this just came to my mind, what do you think would be a greater way for us as different generations to learn from each other? Because I think there is sometimes we spend too much time categorizing each other and assigning blame for certain subject matters to a certain generation, and I don't think that is a good way for us to learn from one another if we want to build a better generation in the future, right?
Yes.
So from your opinion, do you have any thoughts on this?
Maybe in a sense that this is really quite broad framed on knowing different aspects of people's personality and the psychological framework of a person as well. I think I can only speak as an educator who have had the privilege to encounter so many kinds of students that sometimes they really need guidance, and they show us, and we do sense it that some of the younger generation may be swimming in the dark. And they're hoping to get a light from somewhere, right? And it can only be that surrounding them, perhaps they are not getting enough things like family type of guidance,
right?
Yeah. And here it's not about educating and putting you in school, or having the right kind of teachers. It's a person in developing themselves have really got to sit down and reflect over and beyond how you are relating to other people. I think it's really important to sit down and reflect. What is your purpose in life that has brought you so far? Has brought you through, say, some things that have happened, right? Through some traumas or through some loneliness, because I do know some of the younger generation say so as well, that they are left on their own, and their parents are kind of busy doing their own thing, and then this intergenerational gap has happened. And if they feel so left behind, or at least kind of told to take care of themselves, that then they would. And upon doing that, sometimes they do meet some people in their lives who are not so good influence for them. So I think it is important for the younger generation to feel that if they could, to find ways to keep on channeling their problems, if they could, with someone that they really trust. And if there isn't any person whom you could just talk to or really want to open up, then I think God above can just really be the one that you can just ultimately just open up and say, I just don't know where I'm going, and all these are the problems that I have in my life, and just kind of like speak to God and just tell him that, you know, I just don't know where my direction is.
Yeah.
I'm swimming in the dark, you know, and I can't find my way out.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by these temptations and that kind of problem. And, you know, everybody's like not quite on my back, you know, and I'm not getting any support, you know, no breakthrough. So please, God, you know, just call out to God and say, you know, I need help. If there's no other one you can talk to God, Deborah.
Yeah.
This is what I think.
I love that you brought that up, that we need to come to a point in our lives where we ask ourselves, what is our purpose? As Simon Sinek usually always says, we need to know our why. We need to know our why before we figure out how to achieve that what. He always says the most important question that we need to ask ourselves is to understand our own why. And I think that even if we don't ask ourselves that question, life will push us to a space where we will ask that question.
I guess so. Yeah.
Why are we here? Right? And you brought up a true statement that sometimes the people around us, we may feel like we can't reach out to them. I mean, the ideal picture would be everyone around us is amazing and we can open up to them, and that is what we all hope for and we all yearn for. But just in case you are in a situation where you feel like, no, I don't feel comfortable. Sometimes it's not even you just don't feel comfortable opening up to those that are around you. God is always available, and He wants to listen to us, and He's waiting for us to reach out to Him as well.
I'll call him my number one listener.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, He is.
Yeah.
And we are so thankful for that. Yeah. And so, Miss Pinky, I also understand that you shared with me earlier that 2020.
That's last year, yeah.
That is last year. Wow. Yeah. 2020, apart from the pandemic, was also a pretty tough year for you. Yeah. So would you mind just sharing?
No worries. I think everyone who's like possibly listening right now, we have survived together. All right. So you've all done your part to keep safe, you know, and to face the challenges, right? That this public health crisis had happened, you know, and we all had our own issues. Mine was, I could say, made a little bit more tougher, or it was a test really more than anything else, because I have gone through treatment for breast cancer.
Right.
And I was diagnosed in September of 2019 to have breast cancer. And upon the diagnosis, it wasn't long before I was recommended to get through all the necessary treatments. And so for a good 6 months, I had to begin with the treatment, which is called chemotherapy.
Yes,
I think you've heard of it, yeah. And so with this first round of treatment, it was just something that I had to go through. But after the testing that was done, you know, at the end of chemotherapy, my surgeon, you know, and the doctors, they were treating me. They felt that I had to go for the other necessary treatment as well, and this was for a total removal of the tumor, which the chemotherapy unfortunately hadn't been able to shrink it so much. And so I had to go through the other procedures that's related to breast cancer treatment, and this is called the removal. It's a bilateral removal, meaning the removal of breasts, and this is called mastectomy. Okay, and upon that, it was also the commencement of the sort of like a cap treatment. It's called radiotherapy.
Right.
And I am done with all these necessary critical things. They all took place in the months where everybody was staying at home. I had to go back and forth to the hospital, and you know, it's just quite incredible how God just really took me through all that. I can't help but to say to Him, like right here, right now, I thank Him entirely for giving me that strength going through all this, because it isn't just a physical aspect of the treatment. It's, you know, it's mental as well. And again, God led me through that time, very testing time. And here's the most wonderful thing he had done, and this is nothing short of a miracle, Deborah, is that I actually didn't give up teaching over those times.
Wow.
I just adjusted the treatment around the classes that I have, and so in such a way where I may have lessened the teaching hours, but I didn't entirely like sit at home, and just kind of rest and lay back in a bed there and not do anything. I think that may have driven me a bit, crazy. So I thought to myself, look, I'm quite fine, and I think I can still do my thing and teach. And so I requested for the management of the colleges, that I was teaching in to let me carry on. And so I think if I could go through this, I hope it's a bit of a way that I could encourage people who are facing similar challenges as I am to try it out as well. But you have to fully be dependent on your own faith in God to take you through it.
Wow. Miss Becky, how are you doing?
It's now 2021, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is 2021.
I am full swing doing my regular thing. All my critical treatments are over. It is just mainly oral medication, now. And the tumor removal has actually kind of like brought back, shall we call it a second life to me. And
Okay.
I am hopefully a better lecturer than ever. I hope. Because I definitely still haven't really, I don't think I have lost touch with, things around me, or felt that I'm any weaker, physically, and therefore please excuse me, for not delivering or for not doing what I have to do. So I've never really asked for any special treatment in and through this period that I've been taken through. So the challenge had been given to me, and I know that I can look back, and my family, I think, can testify that going through it had probably in a certain way strengthened them as well, and inspired them to see that if you really trust God, right, and know that, by the way, medical treatment, especially for breast cancer, is really rather advanced today. Have some faith in the in medication and in medical science as well. And just work with the doctor. All right. At the same time, in your deepest of your heart, do have the deepest that you can of faith in Him.
Wow.
There's no other way to get through this.
Wow. Thank you,
It's a mix.
Miss Pinky, for sharing. I think I'm really just so inspired by your mental capacity to just carry on, you didn't allow your situation to stop you or to change the way you looked at yourself, and you just carried on. And I can't imagine what a year it must have been for you and your family, but I just want to praise God that He has guided you through.
Amen.
And I'm so thankful that you are here today, and you are as lively as ever. Miss Pinky has never changed. Since the time I met her until today.
Bye.
But I'm
All
really
right.
just so thankful for your vulnerability, for you to share so transparently, and I'm inspired by your story, and I believe that everyone who is listening today will be inspired as well. So Miss Pinky, as we come to a close to this podcast, if you have one advice that you would want to share with our listeners today, what would it be?
Oh boy, all right. Maybe this question you should be asking me like another 10 years from now, just really hopefully, all right?
Yeah.
I got 10 more years ahead.
You will, you will, Miss Pinky.
I guess, the wisdom that you think or you say that I have is only the wisdom that has come in because of the journey that I've taken in life. Everybody really goes through ups and downs, mountains and valleys in life, all right? And if some of you who are as young as Deborah here are going through some of these valleys of darknesses that you are feeling, and if it just feels like there is no sun anywhere and that you can't see your breakthrough, it is those moments that I do really want to encourage all of you, no matter what your background is, whether you are living in the middle of the city, you're far away from the city, and whatever your social circumstances or your family circumstances are, I think it is good to keep ourselves focused on knowing that for so long as we are alive, and that we are given precious life, every day is a day that we can wake up and feel ourselves able to show something to the world. We begin by embracing people with love, and to know that everyone makes mistakes, and everyone has flaws. And everyone has insecurities. Young generation particularly. And I think it is important that you see yourself working through all these things as much as possible with people that you're surrounded by who are really on your side, and who can listen to you without, say, judging you or prejudging you, and who are your who are cheering for you. Because the more you are certain of having those people around you, it'll make the task or the journey easier. But if you can't see those kind of like relationships being built, if you are surrounded by people who are negative, or who can't show you a way out, then maybe rely more on your own self-reflective abilities, and question yourself, all right, on where you stand currently, what you have gone through, and indeed, where are you going? What is your purpose in life? Why are we here? Why are we all here? It's this number one question that will always drive us onwards, to know that every day is a wonderful blessing.
Wow, that is absolutely beautiful. Miss Pinky, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It is really my privilege to have you here with me today, and that you agreed so quickly to do this podcast with me. And I'm so thankful.
I should have told you my story earlier on, maybe, when you were still my student, and we were still there, in the classroom, But here we are. See, God led us to this place where now I hope I can inspire maybe more people. I hope.
I pray so. Yes, thank you, Miss Pinky.
Thank you
for
Deborah.
taking the time to be with me here today. And to the audience, I hope you have been inspired by this story by Miss Pinky, and I just want to remind you that everyone has a pocket of wisdom to offer, and that includes you as well. So if you like this, if you think someone will be blessed by this, do share it with them. And with that, do take care. Stay socially distanced and take care. God bless. Bye.
Stay safe. God bless everyone.